America's not falling apart. It's being torn down, piece by piece, right in front of your face. Over 5,400 stores closed in the first 10 months of 2025. Suicides just hit a 50-year high. Mortgage defaults are up 37%, and 20 million American households are behind on utility bills. Meanwhile, the US dollar is being dumped by our enemies. The Fed is cornered, the banks are nervous, and the FBI has openly admitted they can't track the explosion of domestic threats. And if you're sitting there thinking someone will step in and stop this, you're already behind. You have one job now: prepare, or be the next casualty in a nation that's already unraveling. You want to know how the elites know something massive is coming? They're not waiting around for a government announcement. They're looking at one thing: risk. And nobody understands risk better than the insurance industry. In the past year alone, 83% of U.S. property insurance providers have hiked premiums, dropped entire zip codes, or left entire states altogether. Florida's average homeowner premium just hit $6,000 a year, more than 4 times the national average, and California is losing insurers by the month. But here's what they won't tell you on CNBC. It's not just about wildfires and hurricanes. It's about civil instability. It's about declining infrastructure. It's about systemic financial decay that makes recovery impossible. Insurers look ahead 5 to 10 years, and what they're seeing isn't pretty. According to the Insurance Information Institute, natural disaster payouts have tripled since 2017, and the frequency of billion-dollar events has skyrocketed from 3 per year in the 1990s to over 20 in 2024 alone. You think that's sustainable? They don't. They're pulling out, quietly, strategically, and they're not waiting for you to catch on. You're already seeing it at the ground level. Ever notice how your auto insurance mysteriously doubled? It's not because you're a worse driver. It's because they're preloading the costs of future collapse into your bill today. They know that as infrastructure crumbles, roads collapse, traffic systems fail, the number of claims will explode. So they're charging you now while they still can. And guess what? When it really hits the fan, when the grid fails, when the riots start, when the natural disasters go from rare to routine, you're going to try to file a claim and they'll point to Clause 23B, force majeure. Sorry. No coverage during acts of God or civil disorder. That's not paranoia. That's the exact language they're using to shield themselves. So ask yourself, if the insurance companies, the ones who profit off stability, are fleeing the market, what does that tell you about where this country is headed? Most people still believe that America's power grid is resilient, that we have teams of engineers and layers of backup for every emergency. But here's the truth. We are one hot summer or one cold snap away from total grid collapse. And the people who run the grid know it. The North American Electric Reliability Corporation, NERC, has already issued its 3rd high-risk blackout warning this year, and it's not even December yet. In 2023, over 25% of the U.S. population experienced at least one blackout lasting longer than 8 hours, and not due to weather. Due to aging systems, overloaded substations, and a surge in demand, the system simply cannot handle anymore. Texas nearly lost its entire grid in 2021 because of a cold front. California's rolling blackouts are so frequent that people have stopped reporting them. And those are the lucky states with some level of preparation. You have to understand, America's power grid was designed in the 1950s. Most of it hasn't been modernized. Transformers are so outdated that the U.S. imports 90% of them from foreign suppliers with lead times of up to 2 years. Let that sink in. If even 10% of our critical transformers were destroyed in a coordinated cyber attack or natural disaster, the power wouldn't be out for days. It'd be out for months or even years. No lights, no heat, no refrigeration, no internet. And you want to hear the real kicker? DHS quietly released a 2024 report admitting the grid could only sustain 40% of projected demand during a widespread winter emergency. 40%. That's not a guess. That's what they're publicly admitting. What are they hiding? Meanwhile, our enemies are watching. Russia and China have probed our power infrastructure repeatedly in cyber warfare simulations. In 2024 alone, the US reported over 15,000 attacks on energy infrastructure, a 450% increase from just 2 years ago. These aren't kids in basements. These are nation-state actors preparing for digital warfare. When the power goes out next, ask yourself, is it just another storm? Or is it the signal? Most Americans won't realize the difference until their phones die, the heat shuts off, and the silence becomes terrifying. By then, it's too late. Take a walk through your local strip mall or downtown district. What do you see? Shuttered stores. For lease signs, empty parking lots. That's not just bad business. That's a signal. Retail is the canary in the coal mine of the American economy, and that bird is stone cold dead. In just the first half of 2025, over 3,500 brick-and-mortar stores have closed in the U.S. That includes major chains like Walgreens, Macy's, Family Dollar, Rite Aid, and Foot Locker. And here's the terrifying part. Many of those locations were still profitable, but they weren't profitable enough. The new survival bar in retail is higher than ever, and if you don't make the cut, you're gone. You think this is just changing consumer behavior? No. This is the middle class vanishing. This is a consumer economy with no consumers left. Retail relies on one thing, disposable income. And in 2025, that doesn't exist anymore. Credit card delinquencies just hit 10.7%, a 12-year high. Americans are defaulting not just on debt, but on essentials. They're swiping credit for groceries. The average U.S. household now carries $11,000 in credit card debt, and with interest rates hovering near 21% APR, it's mathematically impossible to pay off. So, what happens next? Retail collapses. Jobs vanish. The supply chain starts to unravel. And eventually, your town becomes a ghost town. It starts with Dollar General closing, then the grocery store, then the pharmacy, and then suddenly, your only option for medicine is a 45-minute drive, assuming you have gas. But this is about more than just convenience. Retail closings are like cutting arteries in a community. Local economies bleed out. Crime spikes, property values crash, and the social fabric tears. Look at what's happening in San Francisco, Chicago, New York, cities where major retailers are fleeing not just because of theft, but because the collapse is spreading faster than the security systems can keep up. This isn't about shoplifting. It's about a total breakdown of consumer stability. If you think your area is immune, you haven't been paying attention. The collapse is already on the map. It's just working its way to you. You've probably walked through the grocery store lately and thought, that's weird. Why is the pasta aisle half empty again? Or maybe you've noticed the meat doesn't look quite right. Smaller portions, higher prices, fewer labels you can trust. That's not just supply chain noise. That's collapse. Slow, quiet, engineered. In 2025, America's food system is failing from the inside out, and it's happening in silence. The USDA's own data shows U.S. farm bankruptcies rose 25% year over year in Q2 of this year alone. You know what that means? Hundreds of small farms, family-owned operations, gone. And when they go, the land doesn't stay empty. It gets bought up by mega corporations and foreign investors. Bill Gates is now the largest private farmland owner in America. China owns over 350,000 acres. You think that's just business? That's food leverage. At the same time, industrial food production is choking under its own weight. Avian flu outbreaks have killed millions of chickens in 2024 alone, driving egg prices up by 62% in some regions. The wheat crop in the Midwest? Hit hard by historic drought and flood patterns. Crop yields are down 18%, according to NOAA. Meanwhile, in major urban areas, you're seeing grocery chains implement rationing systems. Not officially, quietly. Fewer restocks, smaller shipments, increased security. Dollar Tree just announced they're removing refrigerated and frozen foods from 1,000+ locations, not because of demand, but because it's getting too expensive to keep food cold. That's insane. Now let's talk about what's replacing real food. Lab-grown proteins, insect-based flours, soy slurry molded to look like meat, and you're not even being told when it's in your food. The FDA recently approved cell-cultured chicken without mandatory origin labeling. That's right. You could be eating meat grown in a bioreactor and have no idea. And if you ask why, you'll be told it's about sustainability. But follow the money. BlackRock, Vanguard, and a handful of global conglomerates are funding synthetic food tech because they know what's coming. Widespread food insecurity. This isn't theory. This is market preparation for scarcity. So what do? Start growing something. Anything. Stock up on real food, shelf-stable food. Learn how to store dry goods for the long term. Because when the next outage hits, whether it's from a storm, a trucker strike, or a cyber attack on a food distributor, it won't be a 2-day inconvenience. It will be a trigger point. The moment shelves go empty, panic buying begins. And then it's every family for themselves. Cities are becoming economic traps, and you'll be stuck there when it all breaks loose. They used to say cities were the beating heart of the American economy. But in 2025, that heart is rotting from the inside. You look around at New York, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, the signs are everywhere. Rising crime, crumbling infrastructure, businesses boarding up for good, and worst of all, the people who can't leave. Because let's be honest, if you don't already have the means to escape a major city, you probably never will. Rent prices have exploded by over 35% nationwide since 2020, but real wages, when you adjust for inflation, have gone down. Homelessness in major metros is up 18% since just last year. That's not a coincidence. That's engineered poverty. And here's the most dangerous part. Cities are no longer economically viable, but they're still being fed just enough stimulus, just enough digital convenience, just enough social credit to keep people locked in. Think about it. We've reached a point where you need an app to pay a parking meter, ride the train, or even order basic groceries. If the grid goes down or the internet fails, if a single system breaks, millions of people become instantly stranded. You can't get food, you can't call for help, you can't even leave your apartment building without electricity to open the gates. Even worse, the layout of cities has turned against us. The very things that made them functional, public transit, shared utilities, mass communications, now make them vulnerable. One cyber attack could freeze everything. One viral panic could trap entire districts. You think that's fear-mongering? Just look at what happened in Austin this year when a power substation failed during a heat wave. Thousands of people were without power or AC for 5 days. 911 was overloaded. The water pumps failed. Emergency services had to ration oxygen tanks. That was just one city, 1 week. Now imagine that nationwide. And don't think you'll just leave when it gets bad. No. When it gets bad, you won't be allowed to. Roadblocks, quarantines, fuel limits, curfews. If you're still in a major city when the collapse accelerates, you are the supply. You are the crowd. You are the statistic. The moment to exit isn't when you can. It's now, before the signs become sirens. The US government is testing emergency powers, and you're the experiment. There are words no American ever wanted to hear in a sentence together. Central bank digital currency, social credit, domestic surveillance, and emergency powers. But in 2025, they're not just real. They're being tested on you, right now, quietly, strategically. And every test is disguised as a pilot program, a new digital service, or a crisis response measure. But if you dig even an inch deeper, you'll see the scaffolding of a system that's ready to clamp down the second things get out of control. Let's start with the digital dollar. As of this summer, the Federal Reserve has begun quietly testing a central bank digital currency, CBDC, through wholesale banking back channels. They're not calling it that yet, but the tech is in place. Project Cedar, FedNow, and collaborations with MasterCard and major commercial banks are all preparing to digitize the dollar. That means programmable money. That means they decide where, when, and how you spend it. Want to buy a second tank of gas this week? Denied. Want to purchase ammunition? Blocked. Want to give your grandkid a cash gift? Not unless it's tracked. That's not some distant dystopia. It's being tested in real time. And it doesn't stop with money. In May, the Department of Homeland Security conducted a simulated national digital lockdown drill. The justification? Misinformation threats. But the mechanism involved geofencing, data throttling, and social media kill switches, tools that can be flipped on at a moment's notice. The tech is already embedded in your phone, in your internet provider, in your app store. And you won't even know it's happening until suddenly your texts stop going through, your posts vanish, your bank app locks you out. It will feel like a glitch, but it'll be by design. And here's the final test, the one nobody sees coming. A false flag event. A cyber attack that doesn't come from a foreign enemy. A staged financial breach. An unexplained outage. And the solution? Total digital control, just for now. History doesn't repeat. It escalates. And America is standing at the edge of the next stage. When the system locks down, it won't ask for your permission. It'll ask for your compliance. And most people, tired, confused, scared, will give it willingly. Don't be one of them. A new American underclass is forming. And you're either in it or you're not. We need to stop pretending that America still has a middle class. That term doesn't exist anymore, not in practice. What we have now is a widening chasm between the illusion of stability and the reality of collapse. And the bottom 70%? They're sliding into a permanent underclass, locked out of ownership, out of upward mobility, out of any meaningful control over their lives. If you don't see this yet, you're already standing on the edge. And the edge is crumbling. Let's look at the numbers the media won't put on the front page. 62% of Americans now live paycheck to paycheck, according to a 2025 Lending Club survey. But that's not the full story. Nearly half of those people earn over $100,000 per year. Let that sink in. Even high earners are one layoff away from ruin. Meanwhile, home ownership, the cornerstone of American identity, is no longer attainable for the average family. The median U.S. home price is now over $430,000, while median household income has stalled at $74,000. You can do the math. Even with perfect credit and 20% down, the average American can't buy a home without spending 60% of their gross income on mortgage, taxes, and insurance. That's not sustainable. That's serfdom. At the same time, mega corporations and hedge funds are buying entire neighborhoods. BlackRock, Invitation Homes, and foreign investors are turning America into a renter nation. If you rent, you pay someone else's mortgage. If you own, you pay the state in the form of skyrocketing property taxes and utility fees. Either way, you're squeezed. And now, with AI replacing white-collar work and automation gutting blue-collar jobs, the question isn't if you'll fall behind, it's when. And what happens when millions of people, all at once, can no longer keep up. Social credit systems, government dependency, biometric checkpoints under the guise of safety. You won't be punished directly. You'll be restricted, nudged, excluded, quietly, permanently. So when people say, this is still the land of opportunity, they're half right. It is, for the ones already at the top. For the rest, welcome to the new caste system. It's invisible, it's digital, and it's already here. People keep saying, the dollar will never fall. It's the world's reserve currency. And that's true, until it isn't. Because history is very clear. Reserve currencies don't collapse gradually. They hold, and then they vanish. Fast. And if you've been watching quietly, like the elites have, you'll notice the architecture of collapse is already in place. And we are far past the point of no return. Start with this. More than 130 countries are actively working to bypass the US dollar in global trade. China and Brazil signed an agreement last year to trade in yuan. Saudi Arabia now accepts payments in other currencies. Russia has ditched the dollar entirely. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, have already surpassed the G7 in combined GDP, and they're preparing to launch a gold-backed alternative currency. When that hits, it's game over for the petrodollar. Meanwhile, U.S. debt just passed $35 trillion, over $100,000 per citizen, and over $250,000 per taxpayer. Interest payments on the debt are now the single largest line item in the federal budget, surpassing even military spending. And you know what that means? Every dollar you earn, save, or spend is being diluted right now. Inflation isn't a temporary glitch, it's a deliberate tax. The dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power since 1913. And the Fed is now trapped. They can't raise rates without tanking the economy, and they can't cut rates without triggering hyperinflation. It's checkmate. And you're holding the pawn, and yet most Americans still treat the dollar like it's sacred, like it's forever. They keep their life savings in checking accounts, stock portfolios, and 401ks, not realizing that these instruments are only as strong as the currency backing them. Once confidence cracks, the financial system doesn't slowly grind to a halt. It collapses in a cascade of panic. Bank runs, withdrawal limits, capital controls, temporary freezes on digital payments. You don't think that's possible? Look at Lebanon. Look at Argentina. Look at Sri Lanka. This isn't about if. It's about when. And when it happens, it won't feel like a collapse. It'll feel like waking up and realizing the world you trusted was always made of paper. So ask yourself now, what do you own that the system can't devalue overnight? The next election will break the country, no matter who wins. Let's stop pretending the next election is just another routine vote. It's not. It's a fuse, and it's already lit. No matter who wins in 2026, red or blue, half the country will believe it was stolen. That's not hyperbole. That's what 56% of Americans told Gallup this year. They don't believe future elections can be trusted. That's more than a political divide. That's civil fracture. And every empire in history has cracked when trust collapsed. Not when the economy fell, not when the enemy invaded, but when the people stopped believing the system was real. What makes this different and more dangerous is that both sides believe they are acting righteously. Conservatives believe they're saving the country from globalist control and cultural destruction. Liberals believe they're defending democracy from authoritarianism and hate. And in between them, nothing. No trust. No shared media. No common narrative. Just digital tribes, algorithmic echo chambers, and 24/7 rage bait designed to escalate until someone snaps. And let's be real. The machine is built for this. The media, big tech, intelligence agencies, they benefit from chaos. It keeps the money flowing. It keeps the surveillance justified. It keeps you divided, distracted, dependent. And when violence erupts, because it will, they'll roll out the playbook. Martial law in limited zones, curfews, National Guard deployments, weaponized DOJ investigations, free speech crackdowns under emergency disinformation measures. It won't look like tyranny, it'll look like safety. And you think 2020 was bad? That was the dress rehearsal. In 2025 alone, we've already seen over 230 politically motivated attacks, including on candidates, journalists, and judges. Political assassination is back on the table. Judges are issuing rulings from secure locations. And paramilitary groups, left and right, are growing faster than anyone wants to admit. You don't see it on the nightly news, but fusion centers across the U.S. are quietly mapping political risk zones inside American cities. Why? Because they know what's coming. The next election won't decide the future. It will reveal it. And if you're not mentally and physically prepared for civil unrest, you're not ready at all. Because once that dust kicks up, you won't get a second warning. There won't be time to wait and see. You'll already be in it. Nobody wants to admit this. Not politicians, not media, not even your favorite pundits on YouTube. But the truth is this: the United States of America is quietly dissolving itself from the inside out. Not with speeches or armies, but with laws, policies, jurisdictions, and values that no longer align. You are not living in one country anymore. You are living in a fractured federation pretending to be whole. And the seams are tearing faster than anyone wants to admit. Let's break it down. As of 2025, 27 states have passed or are actively pushing legislation that directly contradicts federal authority. That includes sanctuary laws, gun laws, surveillance bans, abortion nullifications, education mandates, even currency alternatives. Texas has already begun deploying its own border force, separate from the federal government and in direct defiance of the DOJ. In response, federal agents have been pulled out of several enforcement zones. That's not governance. That's a cold war inside our own borders. And it's not just red states. California, Oregon, New York, and Illinois are also asserting sovereignty in quiet, legal ways. Whether it's emission standards, vaccine mandates, or digital ID systems, these states are building entire parallel infrastructures, creating systems that are incompatible with other parts of the country. A resident of Florida and a resident of California are no longer living under the same rule book. And once that's true long enough, you don't have a nation. You have a map that lies. But the most dangerous part isn't policy, it's psychology. More than 40% of Americans now support the idea of their state going its own way. That number was under 10% a decade ago. Now, it's nearly half the country. And the people in power know it. That's why national rhetoric has become existential. Everything is a threat to democracy, or the end of America as we know it. Because it is. And both sides know the winner of the next few years doesn't get to rule the country. They get to define what the country even is. Now imagine what happens when a major event, a blackout, a debt default, a disputed election, a terror attack, triggers the fracture. Imagine a state governor refusing a federal order. Imagine two state National Guards facing off over jurisdiction. Imagine highways blocked, resources hoarded, communications severed, courts ignoring each other's rulings. That's not fiction. That's the natural endpoint of where we already are. It's not going to look like the Civil War of 1861. There won't be flags and battlefields. There will be zones, digital and physical. Safe zones, no-go zones. Your location will determine what rights you have, what currency you can use, what you're allowed to say, what you're forced to comply with. And here's what you need to understand. The silent secession doesn't need your vote. It doesn't need Congress. It doesn't even need permission. It just needs time. And the longer it goes on, the harder it becomes to stitch anything back together. If you're waiting for a press conference to tell you that America is over, you'll miss it, because it's already begun.